The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa, Section 150. The persistence of instinctive life in the guise of human intelligence is one of my most constant and profound contemplations. The artificial disguise of consciousness only highlights for me the unconsciousness it doesn't succeed in disguising. From birth to death, man is the slave of the same external dimension that rules animals. Throughout his life, he doesn't live. He vegetatively thrives with greater intensity and complexity than an animal. He's guided by norms without knowing that they guide him, or even that they exist. And with all his ideas, feelings, and acts are unconscious. Not because there's no consciousness in them, but because there aren't two consciousnesses. Flashes of awareness that we live an illusion, that and no more, is what distinguishes the greatest of men. With a wandering mind, I consider the common history of common men. I see how in everything they are slaves of a subconscious temperament, of extraneous circumstances, and of the social and antisocial impulses in which, with which, and over which they clash, like petty objects. How often I've heard people say the same old phrase that symbolizes all the absurdity, all the nothingness, all the verbalized ignorance of their lives. It's the phrase they use in reference to any material pleasure. This is what we take away from life. Take where? Take how? Take why? It would be sad to wake them out of their darkness with questions like that. What does he plan to take from life? And how? Where will he take his pork chops and red wine and lady friend? To what heaven that he doesn't believe in? To what earth where he'll take only the rottenness that was the latent essence of his whole life? I can think of no phrase that's more tragic or that reveals more about humanity. That's what plants would say if they could know that they enjoy the sun. That's what animals would say about their somnambulant pleasures or their power of self-expression, not inferior to man's. And perhaps even I, while writing these words with a vague impression that they might endure, imagine that my memory of having written them is what I take away from life. And just as a common corpse is lowered into the common ground, so the equally useless corpse of the prose I wrote while waiting will be lowered into common oblivion. A man's pork chops, his wine, his lady friend. Who am I to make fun of them? Brothers in our common ignorance, different expressions of the same blood, diverse forms of the same heredity. Which of us can deny the other? A wife can be denied, but not mother, not father, not brother. Section 151. Outside, in the slow moonlit night, the wind slowly shakes things that cast fluttering shadows. Perhaps it's just hanging laundry from the floor above, but the shadows don't know they're from shirts, and they impalpably flutter in hushed harmony with everything else. I left the shutters open so as to wake early, but so far I haven't succeeded in falling asleep or even in staying wide awake, and the night's already so old that not a sound can be heard. There's moonlight beyond the shadows of my room, but it doesn't come through the window. It exists like a day of hollow silver, and the roof of the building opposite, which I can see from my bed, is liquid with a blackish whiteness. In the moon's hard light, there's a sad peace, like lofty congratulations to someone who can't hear them. And without seeing, without thinking, my eyes now closed on my non-existent slumber, I meditate on what words can truly describe moonlight. The ancients would say that it's silvery or white. But this supposed whiteness actually consists of many colors. Were I to get out of bed and look past the cold panes, I know I would see that in the high, lonely air, the moonlight is grayish-white, blued by a subdued yellow, that over the various unequally dark rooftops, it bathes the submissive buildings with a black-white and floods the red-brown of the highest clay tiles with a colorless color. At the end of the street, a placid abyss where the naked cobblestones are unevenly rounded. It has no color, other than a blue which perhaps comes from the gray of the stones. In the depths of the horizon, it must be almost dark blue, different from the black blue in the depths of the sky. On the windows where it strikes, the moonlight is a black yellow. From here in my bed, if I open my eyes, heavy with the sleep I cannot find, it looks like snow turned into color, with floating threads of warm nacre. And if I think with what I feel, it's a tedium turned into white shadow, darkening as if eyes were closing on this hazy whiteness. Section 152. I'm astounded whenever I finish something, astounded and distressed. My perfectionist instinct should inhibit me from finishing. It should inhibit me from even beginning. But I get distracted and start doing something. What I achieve is not the product of an act of my will, but of my will's surrender. I begin because I don't have the strength to think. I finish because I don't have the courage to quit. This book is my cowardice. If I often interrupt a thought with a scenic description that in some way fits into the real or imagined scheme of my impressions, it's because the scenery is a door through which I flee from my awareness of my creative impotence. In the middle of conversations with myself that form the words of this book, I'll feel the sudden need to talk to someone else, and so I'll address the light which hovers, as now, over rooftops that glow as if they were damp. Or I'll turn to the urban hillside with its tall and gently swaying trees that seem strangely close and on the verge of silently collapsing. Or to the steep houses that overlap like posters, with windows for letters, and the dying sun gilding their moist glue. Why do I write if I can't write any better? But what would become of me if I didn't write what I can, however inferior it may be to what I am? In my ambitions, I am plebeian, because I try to achieve, like someone afraid of a dark room. I'm afraid to be silent. I'm like those who prize the medal more than the struggle to get it, and savor glory in a fur-lined cape. For me, to write is self-deprecating, and yet I can't quit doing it. Writing is like the drug I abhor and keep taking, the addiction I despise and depend on. There are necessary poisons, and some are extremely subtle, composed of ingredients from the soul, herbs collected from among the ruins of dreams, black poppies found next to the graves of our intentions, the long leaves of obscene trees whose branches sway on the echoing banks of the soul's infernal rivers. To write is to lose myself, yes, but everyone loses himself because everything gets lost. I, however, lose myself without any joy, not like the river flowing into the sea, for which it was secretly born, but like the puddle left on the beach by the high tide, its stranded water never returning to the ocean, but merely sinking into the sand. Section 153. I stand up from my chair with a monstrous effort, but I have the impression that I carry it with me and that it's heavier, for it's the chair of subjectivity.